Namaste. This is Ally, and in this video I'm going to be answering a question that is one of the most frequently asked questions on this channel, which is around Yoga Nidra. And what exactly is Yoga Nidra? Is it a practice? Is it a state of consciousness? Is it a meditation technique? So we'll dive a little bit more into this question. And yes, contemporarily, Yoga Nidra is often known as a practice or a technique, or maybe even a set of different techniques, which, yes, there are a lot of techniques that can be used. You've probably explored many of those techniques here on this channel. Things like a rotation of consciousness, where, or sometimes known as a body scan, where we, bring a gentle awareness to different points in the body. A rotation of imagery you might be familiar with. There are lots of different techniques, and also pre-practices that can help to bring one into a Yoga Nidra. So things like pranayama, different asanas that can be helpful pre-practices for calming the nervous system and taking one into that deep state of relaxation, a deep rest state that is really the foundation of Yoga Nidra practice. However, what does Yoga Nidra truly mean if we're referring to the historical context of looking and studying the ancient texts and the Vedic texts? What you'll find is that Yoga Nidra is really a state of consciousness. It's a unique state of consciousness where the physical body is in a deep state of sleep, or at least mimicking a deep state of sleep, and not the dreaming state of sleep where the mind is quite active with different visuals and cognitions, but the deep sleep state where there are really no cognitions or a ton of activity happening in the brain in terms of thoughts and visuals and states of consciousness that are associated with some of the higher frequency brainwave states. So in Yoga Nidra, the state is more associated with a delta brainwave state, a deep delta brainwave state, which is the same brainwave state that is present in deep slow wave sleep. So in this state of Yoga Nidra, there is a slowing down of the brainwave modulations into delta brainwave state, which is a very deeply healing and rejuvenating state to be in. And this is one of the reasons that people really love the practice and love the benefits of the practice, is going into these states of deep, deep rest, where the nervous system is going into rest and digest and healing mode. So you might think of what it's like to experience deep sleep, deep dreamless sleep. It's not a state that we often associate with remembering a whole lot about. So going into that deep dreamless sleep where you went so deep you can tell in the morning just by the way that you feel, or you might even not remember how you got there. You went so deep into that emptiness, that sort of void of deep sleep where all of the thoughts, cognitions, dreams, they all cease to be there, and there's a sense of emptiness or void that is the deep sleep state. So the body really goes into this state, yet it's a unique state of consciousness because there's this trace awareness, or there's a sense of the part of you that perceives your experience there's a sense of consciousness that remains in that state of emptiness or nothingness. And this is where it can sometimes become a little bit paradoxical for people, because there's a state of emptiness that connects us to an experience of oneness. So it's like this emptiness and fullness simultaneously. And people often can really only describe it when they come out of that state as, I touched into something meaningful. And they often can't even really describe their experience, because it's more like they're experiencing the after effects of it, if that makes sense. So there's this sort of fragrance of, I touched into, sometimes people will say, I feel like I tapped into my innate wholeness, or I feel like I tapped into a state of oneness with all that there is, or, something happened. That's a really common one that people will say to me. I don't know what happened, but something happened to me. And I can't quite describe it, but I feel like I touched into something true and something profound and something deeply healing. And so, Yoga Nidra as a state of consciousness really is not so much about sleeping. That word Nidra in Yoga Nidra is the deep sleep state. That's it. The word Nidra, if we really distill it down to its simplest translation, would be just sleep. Whereas with Yoga Nidra, it's yogic sleep. And this is this state that we're talking about here in this video, this state where all cognitions tend to cease, all the thoughts tend to slow down into this sense of spacious presence. And people will essentially describe it sometimes as tapping into their true nature. And with each practice, people tend to bring back with them more peace, more contentment, more self-acceptance, more feeling their true sense of innate wholeness and worthiness. And really, from a yogic philosophy standpoint, we're not even really scraping the surface here of what Yoga Nidra, what you can dive into in terms of the study of this state and of this practice. But know that these different techniques that we explore here on the channel are really meant to help to take you into that state, to take you into that place of non-doing, no mind, deep rest, deep sleep state. And it becomes a journey of awakening. And many people will come to me and tell me about the cumulative effects of their practice, because sometimes they come here to learn or practice Yoga Nidra as a technique that they've heard about, that they know, it's good for the nervous system or this or that. And then they start to realize that there's something more happening here. There's something more to this state if they're tapping into or touching into that state. So my suggestion to you is to gravitate towards the techniques and the practices that take you into those deep states within yourself, where maybe you have a sense of coming back from something that you can't quite put your finger on, maybe the fragrance of a sense of innate wholeness, or tapping into that feeling of oneness with the whole universe. Sometimes I'll get really interesting comments from people here on the channel that have had these sort of wild experiences where they have felt like they've come back from essentially merging with the entire universe or something like that. The different ways that people describe coming back from this experience there's a wide array of ways that people try to bring language to the sort of after effects of coming back from that place where they're like, something big just happened. Something magical, maybe a little bit. It's not magical, but I like to use the word magical sometimes. Anyhow, I hope that this is helpful. I do explore lots of different techniques and know that there are different ways and different styles of techniques that Yoga Nidra guides will use to bring people, to invite people into that state of Yoga Nidra. And like one of my beloved mentors would say, there are 360 degrees or ways to climb a mountain. And so just be really open to the different techniques that you learn and be curious and try different techniques. But know that the techniques and the state are not one and the same. And that's not to say that every time we practice Yoga Nidra that we're meant to go into that state of consciousness. There are many different states of consciousness that can be explored along the way. And I will sometimes get comments from people who have gone into a lucid dreaming experience or an out-of-body experience or into like complete deep sleep or into a light hypnagogic or sort of hypnotic like trance. And these are all different experiences that can happen in the practice and are very normal. So know that you can trust your body to know what it needs within the practice. And for me, when I first began my Yoga Nidra journey, I thought for the longest time I would just completely fall asleep and I'd wake up at the end feeling completely different, like something incredible had shifted in my life and I had no idea what. And I was really dealing with a pretty chronic sleep and rest deficit at that point in my life. And it wasn't for many practices, being persistent with practicing Yoga Nidra with my teacher, who was a senior teacher at the Kripalu Institute, that I eventually would start to have this sense of this awareness that would come along with me for the journey. And then the states that I would explore would become much deeper over time. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Please let me know in the comments below if this is making sense, the difference between techniques and practice versus the state of Yoga Nidra. And know that one of the other most common questions that I get on this channel is about Sankalpa. What is a Sankalpa? And so I have actually created a video in the past where I talk about my primary Sankalpa and how that has sort of evolved over the past couple of decades. So I think it will be helpful for you to check that out if you don't know what is a Sankalpa, because really, although many guides will offer a Sankalpa that you might invite in at the beginning of a practice, what you really want to do is get in touch with your Sankalpa, your heartfelt desire, your North Star in this life. So it might be helpful for you to tune into my journey with when I first discovered this practice and learned about what Sankalpa is and how it has really progressed into something much more meaningful over time, in the sense that it's a Sankalpa that is giving back to the world, or the intention is to nurture the world in this way of spreading peace. My Sankalpa has to do with spreading peace within the world. So I hope that you check that out if you're wondering about Sankalpa in your Yoga Nidra practice. And if you'd like to dive deeper into Yoga Nidra and all of the incredible knowledge and science and ancient science that support some of the techniques of this practice and will help you to cultivate that state more often in your life, then please feel free to check out my online Yoga Nidra training. It's a yoga teacher training to learn to become a guide of Yoga Nidra, but we also have just really sincere students and seekers who want to dive deeper into their journey with Yoga Nidra who join the program as well. So you can find that at my website. I'll put a link below. And I would just love to hear from you in the comments. So let me know if this video gave a little bit more clarity for you around this Yoga Nidra, the practice versus the state of Yoga Nidra, the state of consciousness of Yoga Nidra. And I would just love to hear from you, connect with you. And if you're in the Yoga Nidra training, I'd love to hear how things are going so far. So let me know. And thank you as always for joining me and for being here and for your continued curiosity and learning around this incredible subject. May you be peaceful, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free. Namaste.